Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Fort Lauderdale Tuesday to accept 10,000 petitions from the Broward Teachers Union and other activists with a simple message: count our votes. The message simple, the solution not so much.
It's too early to answer the question how.
Wasserman Schultz and her 8 Democratic Florida colleagues in Congress opposed a mail-in revote plan, but that's where their unity ends. Some support Obama. Others, like Wasserman Schultz, support Hillary Clinton, who won the disputed January 29th primary by 17 points, and who would like to see the delegates seated that way at the convention.
We can't make up a delegation. You can't base it on polls. That has been suggested. You can't split it 50-50 because that was not the will of Florida voters. The delegation must be seated, at least in part, based on votes that were cast.
But even there, an admission from the Congresswoman that getting the Obama campaign to agree on those results from an election in which there was no campaign could be difficult. One possibility, a scheduled meeting of the DNC Rules Committee at the end of April. The committee has broad powers to set the rules for the convention in August and contains supporters from both campaigns. Alan Katz is the only Floridian on the DNC Rules Committee.
We're going to have to figure out some way of doing that without creating a huge disparity between Senator Obama and Senator Clinton, and some way to sort of deal with the fact that the same committee we're going back to said you cannot select your delegates on the 29th of January.
Where there is universal agreement is that Florida must be represented somehow.
The Democratic National Committee recognizes that we can't risk deflating the enthusiasm of these people right here.
Well, there are a couple possible solutions.
Obama, though, like the one raised at this Democratic gathering in Fort Lauderdale by a South Florida congresswoman supporting Hillary Clinton.
I am concerned that he would want to continue to affiliate himself with a church that was led by a pastor who has views like that.
From his barber's post, Chile wonders, too.
This country, they say they won't change, but they're not ready for a black man. That's the bottom line. The country's not ready for a black man. If they're ready for a black man, you wouldn't be having all of this here today.
A racial stalemate, Obama calls it, one that this dad, Yvonne Weish, hopes might be gone when his 3-year-old son is grown.
I want him to be able to love one another, you know what I'm saying, man, woman, black, white, you know, all races. So I really don't, agree with the racism thing at all.
With the critical Pennsylvania primary in sight next month.
$4 million for the Republican National Committee today and 2 fundraisers between Jacksonville and Palm Beach. We're live here in Satellite Control. I'm DeMarco Morgan, NBC6.
And as the president tackles the economy, the Democrats are tackling reaction to the no revote decision. Ari Odzer brings us the very latest on the delegate dilemma. Ari?
Well, Tony, now that the revote option in Florida is officially dead, any hope for seating Florida's delegates lies with party officials and the campaigns working out some kind of a deal. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz is among those involved in the process. Speaking in Fort Lauderdale today, she said she wants the votes already cast in the primary to count at least in some way.
Count our votes.
These are Democratic Party activists, the grassroots types you always hear about. They are also almost all Hillary Clinton supporters.
In the United States of America, when a vote is cast, it should be counted.
Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz is also a Clinton backer. Clinton won the January 29th Florida primary, and even though Democratic voters knew the results would not count, Wasserman Schultz says Florida's 210 delegates need to be included at the national convention. Compromise needs to be worked out.
We've got to make sure as Democratic leaders that we put our personal and political differences aside and come together to reach a conclusion and a solution to this. And I really feel confident that we'll be able to.
Count the January 29th results as is? Not likely to happen. The candidates agreed not to campaign here or run ads in Florida. Clinton supporters say, so what?
We don't need our highways plastered with posters in order to figure out who to vote for.
But a lonely Barack Obama backer points out the obvious. Yes, 1.7 million Democrats voted, but many were drawn to the polls by the property tax amendment. Political motivation was lacking.
They were telling you that very definitely that your vote was not going to count and that it didn't matter. And so if you're a busy working person, do you make that time to get out on your lunch hour or to stand in line?
So what happens now? Wasserman Schultz says, don't worry, Democrats. The head of the party is finally on the case.
Myself and Congressman Wexler spoke to Howard Dean last week. Actually, he called me for the first time, which I was really pleased to see that he was starting to engage. It's been a little frustrating to watch him fan the flames instead of help us solve this problem, but I think he's committed to getting it solved now.
Wasserman Schultz says any solution should reflect what the voters in Florida decided on January 29th. Other party leaders I spoke to today said that's far-fetched, but they all agree something will be done before the party's convention in August. Julia?
All right, thank you. And
many Democrats are waiting with bated breath to try to find out if Michigan will do what Florida won't do, namely have a primary revote. A proposal in Michigan reportedly is being held up by a key sticking point, a rule that would ban anyone who voted in the January 15th Democratic primary from casting a ballot in the revote. Meantime, Florida Democrats are trying to figure out where they go from here a day after state party officials nixed a revote in the so-called Sunshine State. CNN's John Zarella is our man in Miami. He's joining us now with more. John, 24 hours later, what does it look like down there?
Well, it's interesting, with any hope now of a revote dead, many Democrats have moved very swiftly, very quickly, and they are trying to find a way to make that vote from January 29th, that January 29th primary, they want that to count. Does this look familiar? A bit reminiscent of Florida 2000. This time it's Democrat on Democrat. Hillary Clinton supporters made it perfectly clear. No revote was ever necessary, they say. It would have cost too much and been impossible to validate voter signatures. The results of Florida's January 29th primary, they insist, must count.
The will of the people was there, and the numbers are very clear.
We need to put the $25 million into the school system and make sure our kids have paper, as opposed to doing another vote.
Their opinion is not surprising. Clinton beat Barack Obama by 17 points in the primary, largely a beauty contest. None of the candidates campaigned in the state, which the Obama side says hurt him greatly. Now, in the wake of Monday's state Democratic Party decision that there would be no mail-in revote in Florida, the focus has shifted backward.
The Democratic Party does listen to its people, and the people made the decision that they felt like that the January 29th, which was a state-run primary, was a primary that they wanted counted.
But how? How could those results be made equitable to both Obama and Clinton? Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a Clinton supporter, insists with a revote off the table, the primary must be part of the solution.
The delegation must be seated, at least in part, based on votes that were cast.
The Democratic National Committee says it is working behind the scenes toward a solution. It will be no small task. It may have been easier to pull off a revote than to get the Obama and Clinton campaigns to compromise. Now, it's pretty clear, Wolf, that there are high-level negotiations and talks going on all over Florida, certainly in Washington, to try and figure out a solution. One thing is clear. The Democratic Party of Florida, by nixing the revote, has, in essence, taken itself out of the equation. They will no longer be part, and they have admitted that, of any decision-making process in what is going to happen with the Florida vote. Wolf?
What a mess. All right, John, thanks very much. Our man in Miami, John Zarella. While Democrats figure all that out, John McCain is free to travel the world right